Hello, we're back with chapter 35 of Elements of Bree, Caves of Fire. They awoke early the next morning after a good night's sleep. The haunting warnings and discovery of the dark fiends was still on their minds as they cleaned up and quickly ate some breakfast. Once they finished, they used the Vitarium bracelet to teleport to the fire caves. They appeared in a clearing at the edge of a vast marshland. To the northeast, they could make out the edge of Jadri, and a little more south, the beginning of the Gaian desert. To the north, the Castle Goal could be seen with a hint of the Royal Golian Harbour. The marshland between them and the harbour was a vast, putrid black colour, and had thorny plants sticking out of it. Blaze warned Bree that the marshland was poisonous, even without getting stuck by any thorns. She didn't want to revisit the feeling of poison like the wind tower, so she turned around to face the Agonian caves. A large area of low-lying hills leading up to a steep mountain range lay before them. Within the hills were many caves, but most of their entrances were not accessible from where they stood. Bree assumed they were all part of the fire temple, and a certain path they would have to be followed to successfully navigate them. She looked at Odiana and then Blaze, nodded, and without saying a word, entered the cave that was before them. For a while the path was simple to follow. There were no rooms with puzzles to solve, all dead ends were short detours, and the climb upwards through the hills was easy. The tunnel walls were lined with a glowing red ore that gave the caves their light. They ended up outside a few times and quickly navigated the crumbling steps from one cave entrance to another. The only creatures they encountered were large centipedes that sprayed a fluid that stung if it touched your skin. Blaze was hit a few times, but used his Thunderbird feather to shoot electricity and shock them to death. Only a couple of the creatures left Rosarum pebbles. After entering and exiting the hills about 6 times, they approached 2 separate cave openings 20 feet apart. They looked between both openings for a while, wondering what to do. "Should we split up?" Odiana asked. "I don't like that idea, but it might be best," Bree replied. "Odiana and I will take that one," Blaze said, motioning to the entrance further away. "Sounds good," Bree said, as she walked forward to the closest one. There weren't as many of the red ores lining the walls during this stretch of the caves, so Bree walked slower as her vision was limited. Despite having the gifts given to her by the Ether, every elemental temple challenged her ability to tap into those gifts fully. She was injured in the Earth Temple, poisoned in the Wind Temple, and now it was her eyesight. Although this challenge wouldn't seem as bad, she could still hear very well. The path she was on sloped down, and she stumbled as she descended. She then found herself in a small room, her first since entering the fire temple. This room was warmer than the rest of the caves. She must be getting closer to the actual fire element. In the dimness of the room, she could make out a large set of double doors with a wooden carving on each. She approached them and lightly touched the handles. They were warm, but not as hot. As soon as she pulled away, the carving on the doors began to glow red, revealing the symbol for the fire temple. The symbol pulsated on the door, making a strange humming sound. She examined the room around her to see similar symbols on the floor. They began to glow as well. She turned and pushed on the doors, and when they didn't move, she pulled. When that didn't work, she turned to face the room again and watched as a thick red substance oozed out of the fire temple symbols, formed into oozing blobs like the ones on the wind tower, and then sparked a flame. Bree instantly began to sweat from the heat. She removed the mystic sword hilt and activated the blade. She figured using flame swords wouldn't work, so she kept it as she first found it. Using the grip hook with her other hand, she moved gracefully around the room, destroying each fire blob that appeared. Thankfully, there were only 8, so it was over quick. She managed not to get burnt, but the heat from the room was also almost unbearable. The double doors at the far end opened up, revealing a brightly lit room. She dashed through the doorway and winced at the sight. The room looked like a lava swimming pool with islands. The roof was a fair distance up and held long metal chains strung like holiday decorations. Within the massive pool of lava was a collection of statues in the shape of wolves facing outward. She guessed there were about 6 of them, surrounding something in the middle of the room. Almost directly across the lava pond from Bree was a large boulder blocking an exit. As soon as she saw it, the pendant seemed to tell her that the element of fire was through that exit. She made her way around the lava pond, purposefully avoiding traveling to the middle with the wolf statues. Once she reached the boulder, she tried to move it. Even with her gifts from the ether, she wasn't strong enough. She turned and scanned the room for anything, and finally her eyes fell upon the wolf statues. She sighed and approached them, walking carefully across the narrow patches of floor leading to the center. Just as she got to the center island, She felt something snap below her foot. She looked down to see another fire temple symbol buried underneath the dirt. The symbol was cracked from stepping on it, and based on the rumbling that she now heard, it triggered the release of something. She readied her sword and grip hook, keeping an eye all around her for whatever trap she sprung. As she turned to face the boulder, there was an explosion of rocks behind her. She turned quickly and was stunned to see a wolf made entirely of fire crouching on the ground in front of her. She stumbled back, but the fire wolf was quicker. She jumped and slashed its flaming paws at her. It jumped and slashed its flaming paws at her. She instinctively tried to block it, but soon she realized she hadn't readied her earth shield. Its paw slashed her arm, holding the grip hook, and she dropped it. She swung the sword and sliced off the flaming head of the firewolf. As it exploded into a puff of smoke, leaving behind a nice rock of rosarum, she looked to her injured hand. The Vitarian bracelet was melting from the firewolf's attack, so she shook it off her wrist and watched as it melted into the floor. She had no time to be sad about the loss, as the 5 remaining statues exploded, releasing 5 more fire wolves.